The concept of overpopulation has been getting a lot of attention in recent years, especially with regards to our own species. The total number of humans on planet Earth has now reached about... oh my god. But we knew there's a lot of us. There's another species that's been making headlines on both sides of the Atlantic though, with wolves being drastically culled in some areas to reduce their numbers. So does this mean that we now have too many wolves? Come to think of it, what even is a population anyway?
We can learn from wolves, not only about the world around us, but the world within. They occupy a unique place in the land and the mind, in these dark hours at the dawn of the Anthropocene.
Let's start with some basics then. In ecology, a population can be defined as the number of organisms of the same species that live in a particular geographic area at the same time, with the capability of interbreeding. That geographic area can be anything from an isolated habitat to entire countries and beyond, depending on what data you're looking to collect. In this video, we'll be talking about population density quite a lot. That's the number of organisms of the same species within a given unit of area. So an overpopulation is just when you've got too many of one species in your study area, right? Well, surprise, it's a bit more complex than that. Otherwise this would be a very short video. In fact, the word overpopulation is kind of a bit of a problem in of itself. Let me go on a quick tangent to explain. The word can be traced back to Malthusianism, an 18th century theory put forward by Thomas Malthus, which models how human populations can quickly exceed their capacity to produce food for themselves. And while we have seen an increase in food and resource shortages, we're still going strong. We've seen a falling standard of living in some countries, yet globalization and modern farming techniques have allowed us to continue growing without some major disaster. That tipping point where we're forced to limit or decrease our own species numbers still lies somewhere in the future, because we just don't know when or if we've exceeded the total people our planet can provide for. We don't know empirically if we're overpopulated. The total number of people that our planet can support is known as its carrying capacity. We can determine this based on what our population stabilizes at, which it hasn't done yet. But on a smaller scale, we could say that any species that consistently exceeds the carrying capacity of its environment is overpopulated. Here's where we can start to return to the main point of the video then. How do we know objectively when there are too many wolves? Well, how can we tell when they've overshot their environment's carrying capacity? To understand that, we need to take a look at something called ecosystem homeostasis. There's a clue to what this means in the word's etymology. Homeo from Greek homoios, of the same kind or equal, and stasis from Greek stasis, standing still. Just like the Earth has a theoretical carrying capacity for humans, ecosystems can only sustain a certain number of individual organisms per species. To keep these different populations in equilibrium with each other, the system regulates itself through negative feedback. In practice, the number of individuals of a species fluctuates depending on both biotic and abiotic factors to meet the changing capacity of an ecosystem. If one species' population density exceeds the carrying capacity for a sustained period of time, they'll deplete the resources they depend on, usually food, and begin to die off. We've seen this happen in the real world with white-tailed deer in Pennsylvania. It's estimated that before 1800, predation by large carnivores and humans helped maintain deer populations at about 20 per square mile. Following the eradication of predators and substantial logging of the area, their density rose to between 28 and 50 per square mile. The carrying capacity in the mid-20th century was estimated at only 18 per square mile, Yet at this time many areas had exceeded this by as much as 220%. Shortly after this figure was established, the deer population crashed, with large numbers dying from starvation over the severe winters, being unable to physically reach a source of food. This drastic die-off shows the ecosystem self-regulating, but without wolves, mountain lions or bears to limit the deer's rebound and maintain that equilibrium, hunting quotas had to be set to maintain their populations at a sustainable level to prevent another crash. So now we have the information we need to answer our original question. Are wolves overpopulated enough to warrant us culling them? What we're looking for is evidence that wolves have exceeded that carrying capacity of the ecosystems they're in, and run the risk of upsetting the equilibrium between the species that they share the environment with. Now, this is actually a little bit of a problem. See, unlike deer, wolves are apex predators. Think about that. It means that they have to regulate their own populations, and this actually works out to about 102 wolves per 1,000 square kilometres. But how do they manage this on their own? Without going into too much detail, some of the main factors limiting wolf population size are the availability of food, competition with other predators, diseases, and conflict between and within wolf packs themselves. Of course, if a natural disaster or disease reduces the carrying capacity for wolves in an environment, their numbers will decline as prey becomes more scarce, then recover and stabilise along with the ecosystem. We also see a similar logistic population curve where wolves have been reintroduced to an area, such as in Yellowstone National Park in the early 2000s. After an initial rapid growth, the population fell slightly before stabilising, then fluctuated naturally on an annual basis. So if wolves don't easily overpopulate, then why are we concerned about their numbers? National Geographic ran an article on the proposed bill to eradicate 90% of Idaho's wolf population last year, in which they quoted a Republican senator as saying, "These wolves, there's too many in the state of Idaho now. We're supposed to have 150 wolves." If we take a look at some of the sentiments expressed by those in favour of the bill, we can see that both wolf population and range far exceeded what they've been led to expect. The state can easily support a population of 150 wolves, but being mainly wilderness, Idaho could theoretically support thousands of them. The same is true for a lot of other examples. The number of wolves in a country or state is determined by government and usually falls well below the carrying capacity of that area. Such a relatively low population limit is often the result of trying to balance the views of different conflicting groups. For example, ranchers and shepherds, the hunting community, the scientific community, loggers, environmental groups, ecotourism, the list goes on. In conclusion then, too many wolves is a subjective phrase. What it often comes down to is a conflict of viewpoint as to how many resources we should allocate for a species that we often find ourselves in competition with. Until we are able to use land more efficiently and stabilise our own species' population growth, it's going to be up to each of us to influence decision makers and try and ensure that wolf population numbers are kept to a sustainable level where the species can maintain genetic diversity. Now, this has been a pretty ambitious video using what little resources I have available on the internet, but there's some good news. I have more textbooks on the way, which means in the future I can make more detailed and accurate videos. If you like the sound of that, give this video a like and comment so I can create the content you want to see. If you'd like to help further, go check out my merch down in the description. There might be something you like, and the proceeds go straight to organisations who ensure a future for wolves in the US and in Europe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.